This is Frank Islam, Chairman and CEO of FI Investment Group and your host of Washington Current Review, where we interview leading voices from business and politics that impact you, the viewer. Today, our guest is Susan Platt. Susan, nice to see you. Thanks for coming here.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, and then what qualifies you to be the next Lieutenant Governor of Commonwealth of Virginia. What do you bring to the table?
Well, I'll tell you, I have been an advocate and an activist for 25 years in Virginia. I have worked for Chuck Robb and Don Beyer as their campaign managers.
Don Beyer, right?
Don Beyer, exactly, statewide. I have worked for Joe Biden as his chief of staff in the Senate. I came back to Virginia and started my own small business advocating for Virginia businesses, but something was missing in my life. So with Mary Sue Terry, the only woman ever elected statewide in Virginia, our first woman attorney general, we started something called the Farm Team, and that was to promote women involvement in their communities, in the political spectrum, and to run for office. After 4 years of doing that, we then folded it into another group called Emerge Virginia. During the period that I was involved, and I was on the board and the founder of both organizations, I have personally trained well over 300 women to run for office. And when Donald Trump was elected president on November 8th,
It demonizes women.
something just changed. And I have to admit to you, Frank, I did sit on the couch for a good week or two. I think I put 10 pounds on. Chocolates, cookies, whatever. And I just thought, I just can't let this go. I never in my life thought of running for office myself. I've worked for a lot of good men, as I just mentioned. And I've advocated for a lot of good issues and a lot of good women. But this time I just said, I just can't sit by the sidelines and let what I call our bullier-in-chief demonize anyone who's not a billionaire. When I started the Farm Team, it was hard to get women involved in politics. They didn't feel threatened. They didn't feel a need to get involved. Boy, do they feel a need to get involved now. And I think everyone who's not a billionaire feels a need to get involved because I think they all feel a fear. They wake up every morning, what's going to happen today?
But the fellow, Mr. Trump, campaigned in the state of Virginia as well as other places, coal mining towns in Kentucky and other places. I am your spokesperson. I am for working class Americans. I am for the middle class American. I bring the job back, and I will start the coal industry again. That's what his message was to get the vote.
Let me tell you a little bit about myself, and I'll come back to the coal fields. My family is an immigrant family. My grandfather came here from Croatia.
From Croatia?
From Croatia for a better opportunity. And that's why most people come to America, for a better opportunity.
So you were against the bans on the immigrations and all those things,
Absolutely.
building a wall of hatred and bigotry?
I was out there at that airport the very first day. As a matter of fact, I was in the Women's March the day after the inauguration. You know what? I'm going to march all the way to November 7th because we have to fight back to bullies. But let me tell you about my pops. His father came here from Croatia, Czechoslovakia area, and he had 13, my father had 13 siblings. They worked in the steel mills of Pittsburgh. And as you know, a lot of those mills are shut down. My dad was the only one of his siblings to go to college on the GI Bill, and he taught dance. So that's how we got through. But I'll tell you, I went down to the coal fields in Virginia a couple of weeks ago, and I sat and talked to them, and I said, I understand you voted for Donald Trump. And they said, we pretty much understood that there was no way that coal was going to come back the way it was. But he talked to us about our hopes and our dreams.
And now it's our anxiety, anger, and fear.
And now, exactly. And I think as Democrats, we have to go out there and talk to my pops.
So go back to those people that you talked to. Those are the Trump voters, and they basically say they voted for him because they're going to bring the job back. But he hasn't really done anything.
No.
Am I correct to
No,
assume that?
and they know that.
What they're going to do with the Medicares and also with Obamacare, they're going to take it out, they're going to suffer.
It's a real problem, and there are many parts of this Commonwealth that are suffering from lack of health care.
Yes.
And, if you have a lack of health care, it's hard to get a job.
So what do the people say about repealing the health care?
Boy, they're very scared. They're nervous. And you know what? Where addiction and opioid addiction, other addictions are most prevalent are in the areas where people feel helpless and hopeless. My stepdaughter, Karen, my husband and I supported her and our 2 grandchildren for 10 years. She passed away a year and a half ago due to addiction. And if my husband and I didn't have the ability to take care of her financially, but every day by putting food on the table and the roof over the head, I don't know what would have happened. But that's what everybody should have the opportunity to do. If we can't take care of our children, we need to step in and have somebody help a little bit. And that's why I have said I will be the children's advocate. because there are too many people across the state who are working hard every day to make ends meet on a minimum wage that is not a livable wage, and we need to work on increasing the minimum wage. But they don't know where to get help. They don't want a handout. They just want a little bit of a help.
They want a hand up.
They don't want to. They want a hand up, and so that's why I talk about a children's advocate and the governor's cabinet to condense all children's services that are already mandated that no one knows how to access. We need to get children straight on the rails before they get off the rails. You know, as we've talked about before, Virginia is #1 in school to prison pipeline. We have to do more and rehabilitating students, but we have to do more on the front end before they go off the rails. Because I know if my stepdaughter, Karen, had had help earlier on in school, if they had identified some issues, that maybe she wouldn't be gone today, and maybe my grandchildren would still have their mother.
Was she recipient of the health care that the President Obama did for the Obamacare also?
At the very end.
So
but
you have a story to tell
I
to
have
the
personal
people.
experience.
Personal experience.
And I will tell you, my granddaughter, before my stepdaughter passed, she spent a long time with us. And she heard me one day, this is a silly, silly comment, it's a silly story, but it's very meaningful in the end. She turned to me and she heard me on the phone with my husband saying I need to get the tire changed on my car. And I hung up the phone and she looked at me like any smart alecky teenage girl would do, and she said, "Grandma, as a feminist, you should change your own tire." And I looked at her and I said, "Kristen, it's because I'm a feminist, I have a choice. And I choose not to do it." Now, as silly as that sounds, that has framed her political activism since that day, and really that's what everybody wants. They want choices in life. And these people who are becoming addicted, these people who don't have health care, they don't feel like they have a choice. The coal miners didn't feel like they had a choice. They didn't have opportunities. And that's what we have to work hard in Virginia to do, and that's what I pledge I will do every day.
Okay, so what's the message for you if you are elected as the Lieutenant Governor? What are the problems and challenges the community faces in the Commonwealth of Virginia that you will be the problem solver for them? And also, what impact this all hatred and bigotry, all the banning, and all the you're talking about the tax on immigrants, which has created a lot of problem in our country, that has become divisive and destructive in some cases. We have entered a dark and dangerous chapter in America, as the media is saying that. What impact does it have on tourism and jobs also?
Well, as a former member of the Tourism Corporation Board appointed
So
by
you
Governor
were?
Kane,
Oh,
I was
okay.
there. I saw it. Dulles Airport and tourism are a huge economic driver for our
It
Commonwealth.
is. So
Huge.
what is the GDP
We-
income?
I can't tell you the exact numbers, but it's big, and it's
It's
growing every day.
So do you think it has effect on the tourism and
Absolutely
jobs?
does. Absolutely does.
So people are afraid to come from foreign countries?
I think right now America is not as welcoming place as it used to be
It
when
has-
my families came here, when my grandparents came here. But I will say one thing, as a tourism board member, one thing that we found years ago is a fellow came to one of our board meetings down in the Northern Neck, and he threw down a gold-painted oyster shell, and he said, "We've let Maryland take the crab from us. Let's not let them take the oyster." So you know what's happened, Frank. We now have oyster trails all around the Northern Neck, created lots of small businesses, new jobs
Which
for
is
folks.
what you want.
But you know what else happened, though? It helps, it cleans the water. So my pledge as Lieutenant Governor, you say, what will I do? Is to try to keep the doors open, keep the airports open for everybody who wants to come here to enjoy this great Commonwealth. But I will go to each Commonwealth, each locality in the Commonwealth, each city and town, and work with their elected leaders, their community activists, as I am, a grassroots organizer, and say, how can I help you forge a future that has economic security for you and your families in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. You know, I have been an advocate and an activist for all my life, and that's what I will bring to the job as a full-time position. It's part-time, but I'll make it full-time and advocate for Virginia's economy and jobs all across the Commonwealth.
So I am I'm a person, I have a roof on my head, I cannot put food on the table, I got 2 kids, I'm a Republican, not a Democrat, and you're running as a Democrat.
Yes, absolutely.
And I say to you, I just lost my job because all the manufacturing jobs have gone back to overseas because the big corporations are there to make money. They're not there to serve the public or to serve the people. They're there to make money. They're guided by their own self-interest and they're greedy. So the question is, what message do you have for that woman who has 2 kids and who cannot put food on the table?
Well, a couple of things. One is
And then her
healthcare.
job is gone.
Healthcare is important.
Okay, healthcare is
Healthcare
important.
is very important. The second thing is, you know, if you're a single mother and you have 2 children, you're trying to balance so many things. Let's say your child gets sick. All of a sudden, if you're working for a minimum wage job, you can't go to that job. So what's happened? You've lost that income. Now you don't have that income and you don't have health care. You feel desperate. You feel hopeless. And that's what I was talking about before. We have to make jobs and make healthcare more affordable, more accessible. The fact that the Republicans in the General Assembly denied our governor's expansion of Medicaid is just unconscionable.
Right. So you're going to be running not only against Trump, you're going to be running against the values of the Republican Party, which you think in some cases they are embracing the policy of the President Trump. Is that what you're saying?
Look, everybody has
That's
to
a double standard.
They have to make their own judgment. The Democratic Party and my beliefs are welcoming to everybody and giving everybody a chance. That's what my pops taught me. That's what Joe Biden taught me, and he lived his life that way.
He did.
Family first, but you have to put food on the table and the roof over the head and try to ensure that your next generation has a better opportunity than you do. And I will work every day for that.
Okay, so what's the message in terms of the people who are on the lower rung of the ladders of the economic mobilities, and there's a problem in terms of economic, inequality, injustice in America, opportunity inequality, gender inequality, economic inequality in America. How do you go about solving those?
Well, I mean, it's a
And it
big
is also
question.
true in the
It's a
state of
big question.
Virginia as
It's also
well.
true, and we're working every day to change that, as I did as an activist, starting a women's organization, because all voices are important. And all voices need to be heard. All voices need to be at the table, because not everyone has the same problems. And I will tell you, I'm not a politician. I can't come to you and say, here's how I'm going to solve your
So
problem.
you're one of the viewers. Yeah.
I will say to the people, let's work together. My idea for the Children's Cabinet member didn't come from a book that someone wrote me. It came from meeting with community leaders, parents, caregivers that deal with this every day. And they said to me, Susan, you're the first politician who's ever come and sat down with us and said, what is it I can do to help you? And when you ask that question, lots of times you get a surprising answer that really might be quite workable, like the Children's Advocate. It doesn't cost more. It helps people, give people more access to all these services that are already mandated, and helps them brings them out of the helpless and hopelessness feeling. They can help themselves.
Good way to put it. You're one of them. You're there to solve their problems.
Right. To help.
And they can call you anytime they want to, because you understand their pain, agony, suffering, and struggle.
I've lived
because
it.
You have lived that.
I've lived it.
That pain, agony, and you're there for the aspirations and dream and hope, not for the anger and anxiety and the fear.
Let me tell you,
Is that what you're going to tell Donald Trump? You meet him?
Well, my pops taught me to stand up to bullies. That's the only way you deal with them. So that's what I do.
So you think he's a bully?
But I know he's a bully. But I'll tell you, I was at the Adams Center recently.
Yes.
That is the largest organization
Yes.
for Muslims in the Northern
You're talking about
community.
the mosque.
The mosque, the
Yeah,
mosque.
You met their mom?
And they sat with me, some of their leaders sat with me, and I attended their Friday prayers. And they sat with me and they said, you're not going to believe what happens at the airport now with us. They said, first when we go and we have our phone with us, they stop us, they take a good 15 minutes, half an hour.
Is that because they think they're a Muslim?
Well, that's the question. Is it profiling? And that was what we were talking about. So they look through their phone and they see who they've been calling and they question them, and then they kind of say, well, maybe you can go, or maybe we take your phone. So what they're doing now is they're saying, look, we're going to ship our phones ahead of us, so we don't have to worry about if our phones are confiscated. So now they're getting stopped, and people are saying to them, the guards, well, how come you're traveling without your cell phone? So they can't win for losing. There's something wrong with that system. We have to work very hard. America has always been a welcoming place for everybody.
We are immigrant.
We are.
My
family's an immigrant.
What about Mr. Trump's two wives are immigrant? His mother was an immigrant.
Absolutely. I don't understand how
so
you
he's
can't
obviously a racist.
understand.
Do you think he's racist and sexist then?
That's not for me to judge. I am who I am. I've worked for what I've worked for. Others will make that judgment. I guarantee you, I will work hard every day. We've never had a woman lieutenant governor. And as an activist and an advocate, I think I could do a pretty good job. I will tell you, there have been 40 lieutenant governors in Virginia's history.
And none of them have been women.
6 Johns, 4 Jameses, 2 Roberts, and 1 L. Douglas. No Susans.
So it's about time to have a Susan.
I think it's about time to have a Susan.
And you'll be the advocate not only for the children, you'll be advocate also the women's rights. So you think that this administration is limiting the civil rights, the human rights, and women's rights and minorities' rights?
I think they're doing it for a lot of people. If you're not a billionaire, I think a lot of people are getting up every morning and they're worried. If you're a federal worker right now, you're scared about losing your employment. How many people are, and that's going to be dumped onto Virginia. into our system.
Because
How
we have
are we
the
going to
largest
handle-
workforce, federal
Absolutely.
workforce.
How are we going to handle that? Right now, he's talking about cutting back all the funding for the Chesapeake Bay. That's a lot of jobs. Not only is it a lot of jobs, but it's going to be such a detriment to our environment.
How'd you go about fighting not the Chesapeake Bay, so National Endowment of Arts, National Endowment of Humanity, U.S. Institute of Peace, Woodrow Wilson Center, and that the total budget probably will be $1.5 billion, which is sort of rounding error for Pentagon.
Well, I tell you, we have two good senators, Mark Warner and Tim Kaine, and I count on them to do a lot of fighting, and I'll be behind them every step of the way. Fighting for what we need in Virginia, absolutely. And our current governor, Terry McAuliffe's doing a pretty darn good job. And I know any other folks running right now in the Democratic primary will do just as good a job as he will.
So I'm your Republican opponent, for example, and I'm running on my own platform, which is the Republican platform, but also what I can do for Virginia. I'm also happen to be the part of what I consider the Republican Party, which is also Trump's. This is who. So what would you tell me? I'm Republican, that I'm better than you to serve our community and to be the best lieutenant governor.
Well, let me tell you about one person who's running on the Republican side for lieutenant governor, whose name is Jill Vogel. She was one, and she's from the Winchester area. She was the one person that put in and patroned the bill that's called transvaginal examinations.
Oh
So
my
I
gosh.
call her transvaginal Jill. If she wins, I believe I'm the only one that will be able to fight her, number one. Number two, I think it's time that people pick their representatives, not the other way around. So I am right behind the forces, One Virginia 21, that outlaws gerrymandering, that makes districts nonpartisan redistricting, so makes everybody's vote counts more. Now the way they're drawn, it's really hard to fight back the Republicans. I mean, we are at a disadvantage, but once we have a Democrat lieutenant governor, a Democrat who breaks the ties in the Senate, mind you, and I will break that tie in favor of nonpartisan redistricting, and a governor who's a Democrat, I guarantee you we will do everything we can to have nonpartisan redistricting pass.
Well, but the message, obviously there's a million things you can talk about this administration's and Republican Party in terms of the health care, in terms of the advocating about, they just talked about the police things of the reform that was done under Obama administration, all the APA's rules and regulations they're talking about having the pipeline. How would you go about saying that this is wrong for the job, for the economy, for the state of Virginia? This is not who we are. These are not the values of the state of Virginia.
Let me just say, I'm the only one running in the Democratic primary for lieutenant governor who has opposed the two pipelines. Number one. Number two, what I talk about on a broader level is trying to close the opportunity gap with an opportunity platform. And that gap is including a whole lot of people. It's not just women. It's not a certain group. It's everyone who feels the need to close the gap. And I will work every day to do that.
I just heard you went to the coal mining town that you just told me.
Castlewood.
I was just told this morning, I was reading a newspaper, it said that the coal mining industry employs less than the Arby's, which is the roast beef sandwich, Arby's sandwich employs.
It's true, but it's also more than a job. It's the culture.
Well,
exactly. It's their livelihood down there. It's what they've known for many years.
But your job is to help them, to retrain
Absolutely.
them, and to make sure that they can get a new jobs and become a productive part of the workforce of the 21st century.
When I
and
talk
you're going
to
to help them to do that.
Absolutely. When I met with them, they understand that coal's not going to come back the way it was. We still will have some coal, obviously, that we transport on the rails, that we go through our port, which is a big economic driver in Virginia.
No question about that.
But one thing that we talk about is there's already electricity being run through the coal mines. Why couldn't we maybe talk about putting wind turbines in there? You already have electricity.
And
why couldn't we transfer
what
that?
About the
and
solars?
Solar, the same
Yes.
thing. So when we were sitting down, we were talking about this. They know
But
that
the
the
state
coal's
has
not
to
what it
help.
was.
Susan,
The
when you
state
become a
has to
lieutenant
help.
governor, is to give them the helping hands to
Absolutely.
make sure there's industry that can prosper and also the clean energy.
When I sat down in Castlewood with 30 great male miners,
Sure.
and the mayor, who was a Republican,
Sure.
and we talked a good bit about all of this, about opportunities, about fairness, no discrimination. Everybody deserves the same opportunities. They all agreed 100%.
And they all-
I could feel it coming from the room. The mayor even turned to me and said, "Susan, you come back, you may have my vote too."
Yes,
But if we sit down together and we work it out, that's what I've done my whole life, is sit down with people and work out to solve problems. We need to sit down and talk to each
you're
other.
going to be the problem solver for your constituency.
I'm going to do the best I can.
Okay, so before we depart, I want you to tell the audience, A, how the people is going to help and support your campaign? B, what's the message you have for the Virginian who's going to vote for you as the next Lieutenant Governor of the state of Virginia?
Okay, well, I'd love you to visit my website. It's www.susanplatt4forva.com. We've just finished the petition process, so we're on the ballot, so we're on the next stage of this campaign. We're traveling to all parts. When I announced, which was kind of reluctantly because of Donald Trump 2 months ago, I have traveled from
you're excited,
Arlington.
you're energized.
I am. I've traveled from Arlington to Abington to Winchester to Virginia Beach and all points in between. I'd love to get everybody involved in the campaign. This is going to be a historic race. This is going to be the first race in the country since Donald Trump was elected president, and I would be the first woman running statewide in Virginia in quite some time, and really the only one this year, because it's just Virginia and New Jersey with the races. But I'll tell you, I have been an advocate and an activist for 25 years. That's my life. That's what I do. And I will tell you, I will do my best every single day to close the opportunity gap with an opportunity platform. And I will be the children's advocate that we all need and deserve. And I work to help get better jobs, affordable health care, and get the roads moving again. So I thank you very much for having me on your show today.
You will be the maker, you call it difference maker. You're there to make a difference in people's lives.
Well, I say if I'm going to run for this, which I never thought I would ever do, that I have to say I'm going to get something accomplished. There is a mission that I have. And my mission is to help children and to help get this economy growing and closing the opportunity gap.
Good. Thank you very much, Susan.
Thank you, Frank.
Welcome, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
This is Frank Islam wishing you a great week, and thank you for watching.